Good morning, everybody. Got another Sunday video for you here. And I just wanted to get a minute just to say a few things here before we get to hearing from more people with their New Year's messages. Last week's video was awesome. Thanks, Joe, for putting that together. And we had enough people that got videos in that we made it 2 weeks. So I'm excited for you to hear from a few other people this week. But just wanted to say a couple of things. First off, I miss everybody a ton. I hope you're off to a good new year, and I'm hoping that if any of you are struggling or having a hard time, that you'll reach out, let somebody know, get some prayer, rally your friends and family and loved ones around you. I don't want to assume that everybody's just doing great. If you're doing great, that's awesome. So Happy New Year. And I wanted to just throw out to everybody that if you haven't yet, obviously I'd like to feel like it's important to address some of what's happening right now in our nation and really world probably. And I wrote kind of a longer email, blog, whatever you want to call it, this week and sent that out. So if you haven't read that, I would really like to encourage you to read it and just see if that speaks to you, challenges you, encourages you. I want to use that forum maybe to address that instead of a message today, since we're kind of focusing more on New Year's messages. The other thing that's important about that email is we're making a few changes about how we're doing our video recordings for Sunday. And so I have that in the details of that email as well. Just a couple little things that are going to make it different. And so if you could make sure you read the email this week, that would be great, just so you're informed and up to date. And if you have any questions, please ask me, email me, give me a text, let me know if it's confusing for anybody. I don't want you to be confused about how we're trying to stay connected in this season. It's important that that's clear for you, I hope. So I'm really excited today to continue to hear from other people, or have you hear from other people about what God did in their life this last year, and maybe what they feel like He's doing this year. I hope you have fun and enjoy watching this, and as you do, just be praying for the different people that share, or reaching out and letting them know how their sharing affected you or spoke to you or whatever. And I would also say this: if there's others of you that just were waiting until the very, very last minute and then we're like, oh, I didn't get my video in, I can always work those videos in. So that's part of the beauty of what we're doing right now. We can edit things and work things around. And so if you do have a video that you want to send in, just letting people know how you're doing, what God has done in your life this year, what He is doing currently right now, please do that. I'd love to have that. So love you guys, enjoy these videos, and we'll be continuing to send out videos on Sunday mornings at 10:30.
Hey everybody, Happy New Year. It was so awesome to hear so many cool and inspiring thoughts from you, all of you, last week. I was really encouraged just hearing especially this message over and over. There was really good stuff and really bad stuff about this year, but God was present. And I think that we really felt that throughout this year as well. And so I wanted to give some updates just, I guess, on our 2020s. And a little bit about the youth group as well in this past year. So I was actually looking through my 2020 journal, and
That's cool. I didn't know you had one of those until this point. Yeah.
The first several pages are all kind of thoughts and prayers and maybe kind of hopes that I had going into 2020, which is always scary at this point. And a lot of it is like, do more events and do more this and that. And I was like, okay, it's fine.
That worked out great.
But I found something really cool. I just wrote a couple notes about what I felt like the young people in our community needed going into this year. And reading those again that I had completely forgotten about, I felt really, really encouraged. I felt like we were able to meet a lot of those needs, at least in some way, and kind of like fill those, be a part of those through the youth group in ways that I didn't know were happening as they were happening, in ways that I don't think I could have imagined when I wrote these. And so I just wanted to share some of those with you all and reflect on that in the fact that we were able to be in community in that way throughout this year that was so weird and challenging, especially for any type of like meeting as a group, was just really encouraging to see. So some of the things I wrote were like being the youth need like healthy people to just be with. And then 2020 hit and we're like, can't be with anybody except for like 5, not very many people. Yet we were still able to meet a lot throughout this year because of the size of our group and kind of the safety and prayerfulness that we took in this youth group. And so as much as we didn't get to be around people this year, I think that need was met in our group, and that's really, really awesome. And then some other ones, time to be vulnerable and heard. We had some really cool moments of that this year.
Yeah.
And I think that is like moments that we will keep in our hearts and minds, and that's what vulnerability is to some extent. But just to let you all know, like, your prayers and encouragement and all of that is loved and needed, and that is something that we're getting to do, even in the craziness of everything. That's something that young people need, that all of us need, and that this kind of group is being able to do in that way. And then just 2 other things were like chances to explore and express thoughts about God and faith. That happened in totally different ways than I thought it could have planned, which was amazing. And I think our group really pulled that out, even of us as leaders, to just be like, let's just talk about Jesus. Let's just get into it in a really direct way. And then I also felt like Joe and I were able to encourage young people to just pursue God honestly and fully, and no matter what that looks like this year or next or how many ever years in the future, it was such like a privilege and an honor to be able to be somebody sowing those seeds. So that's kind of my update on the youth group. It was really great in all the ups and downs, and even though there was a lot of times that we didn't get to meet, the fact that we did at all was awesome, and really love all the young people in our community. So
yeah. I think it was an interesting just kind of thing in general, because like it was like 2019, we were like, sweet youth group, this is gonna be awesome, this is gonna be fun. Like I wonder how like in a few months or whatever, if we're gonna get more people from school that are just gonna kind of show up or whatever, if it's gonna stay this group. And then very similar when 2020 hit, and most realistically when the lockdown hit, I was like, oh no, this is our group. And it was a cool realization for me that we had quite a bit later in lockdown, was like, I'm so incredibly thankful for the group that we had, because if it was bigger, we would have immediately had to have been like, no, we can't meet. And I think just on a personal level, having youth group with the group that we did has meant so much to me and to us. And like, as we've been leading it, like that's been incredibly fun, but like I think we got something out of almost every message as well.
Absolutely.
Or meeting, just in the fact that like all of them have such cool like opinions or thoughts and just things that like I had never thought about, but it was like their first initial reaction. So I think God was really in his own, like in the own way, looking out for us in the sense of like, we're going to keep this a smaller group, but you guys are going to be able to go to some amazing places. And I think we really did hit that with all the like challenges and unique situations that the year brought. The youth group has definitely been such a huge highlight to me and to us, and like just so excited to continue walking that out into this next year and seeing where we go as we pursue Jesus, as we continue to pursue each other, and just building those kind of kingdom relationships that are going to mean so much to us, but then hopefully will be life relationships for them in all those unique ways. So that's been just incredibly fun to do. But yeah, I think for myself, 2020 has been was a really good year, which is kind of sad and scary to say. Like, the year itself was obviously some awful things happened around the world, but we are sitting in my new house. Like, I have a house, guys. That's crazy. I should not have that. These are my lovely blue curtains, and that's it, because everything else does not look great at the moment, but it's mine. So like, I'm so thankful for God for that, and just overwhelmed still, I think, a little bit, but it is an incredibly cool thing that happened in 2020. Like, that is something that, for all the ups and downs that this year has brought, like, that's going to be something that will always stick with me. And just on, I think, a spiritual level, like, this year would have been so easy for me to just pull up away completely and just kind of chill out and do nothing. But to have that kind of like that urge and that drive to really press into God in new areas, and any areas that I could serve Andrew in the bridge, like, it's been something so cool to see my faith grow on such a personal level that, like, I've already seen the outcomes that can have inside youth group, inside just other areas. Like, that has been so awesome and such a cool thing that, like, I think is so important that, you know, Andrew's talked about in some of his earlier messages. Like, church, if we're not missing church, like, there's a that's not a good sign. And what does that mean, and what does that look like? And so I think for each of us in our own personal ways, we've had to figure out what does that look like, and what does that mean to us. And I think luckily I found that pretty early on in 2020. But even still with that, just God being able to work his way and work through me and work in me has just been awesome. So
Yeah. And honestly, I would really kind of agree that, like, 2020 was a pretty good year for me, and I also kind of take that caution and, like, it's gonna, like, freak out at me, or I don't know, if I had a really, really horrible year, like I know a lot of people really did, that would be hard to hear. Yeah. Honestly, probably. But I agree that it's been so much more about, like, seeing what God is doing throughout this whole year that has made it really good still. And so that's why also it was so encouraging to hear from several of you last week the ways that God was working throughout this insane year. And so I guess for me, that has definitely played out in my, like, living space as well. I moved into a house right on the north side, close to church, close to Andrew and Mary, a house that Andrew and Mary own. And I have one roommate who is also going to Whitworth. And so everything for that just really fell into place in a really like crazy and awesome way, that when school got shut down last spring, I didn't think I was going to be able to, like, figure out how to be in that space in the same way that I wanted, or even potentially, you know, like, have the means to do it financially and realistically. And so when that all kind of, like, worked out to still happen, I just really felt God's presence in that, and it was even like a pretty big transition step for me that I had a lot of like fear and nerves around, and so it was really confirming to me that in all of that, this was a step that God really had for me to take in my own just like life and journey, maturity, everything. And so there was that, and then I feel like also with my job, like I'm still working with the Youth Catalyst team, that position, with a team of young people to work on projects to end homelessness and anti-trafficking, lots of intersectionality and specific projects within that. But going into like 3.5 years with them now, and this past year has just been like so much learning and truly feeling like friendship and community with people from all over the nation that are doing amazing, powerful things, and especially in light of all of the racial justice and really, really challenging things happening throughout this year, still happening, obviously, this year now as well. I feel like I got to learn so much. I feel like God revealed so much of their heart to me in that space that I have been so blessed with. And so, yeah, that really made this year awesome as well, even though there was a lot of uncertainty, there was a lot of expectations that did not happen, as I kind of even mentioned with church and youth group stuff. But similar to last week, it was God is still present, God is still working, and God's love is the same true and deep love that it always has been and like will continue to be. So that was really cool to feel and live out this past year. And then obviously also our relationship has been something
It's been pretty fun.
that made this year probably a lot more fun and exciting, different challenges, but you know, mostly just beautiful and amazing. Getting to step into that kind of relationship with somebody we have found to be like really life-giving and special, and on that spiritual side of things, like so much growth there, I think, because of the relationship. But then it also just makes like the rough days and rough parts of this year a lot better to be walking out with someone. So also I wanted to make this video together and just constantly always ask for your love and prayers and support and just like community in that, because that's the way that we want to build this relationship for sure. But that has been a huge part of this year for us as well, and just wanted to share that with you all.
Yeah, you did that really nice. Like I was gonna again try to go to some kind of comedic style that has been the case so far, but like I agree fully. Like this, it's without being incredibly cheesy, like you're one of the main reasons this year has been awesome, and just God working in us and through us. Like it's been cool to see that obviously in our lives, but just how it's grown inside of like youth group and other things like that. It's just last year, again, for all of its rough and challenging parts, I think I grew so much personally and was lucky enough to grow in this amazing relationship, and know that's going to continue on through hopefully the next few years and years and years and years to come. But yeah, until then, we desperately miss you guys and like are ready to get real church back and to see all your guys' faces. Until then, we will continue having these cool little videos, and hopefully we'll get to see you all very soon.
All right. Well, I've got Dave Steele, and good to see you, Dave. I know I'm sure lots of people miss you, and I know it's been a long time since all of us have seen one another. And I've had the
the privilege of getting to touch base with you every now and then. Know that this year's been, with all its challenges, it's also been a year where you've really felt God doing some stuff in your heart and in your life. So just wondering kind of if there's one thing or a couple things that kind of stick out to you, about, something, maybe not positive, but something, well, yeah, positive that God's done in your life in through this year, in this year. Is there anything that kind of jumps out at you?
Uh, Definitely. And it's kind of funny because it spins. It's got a couple of prongs to it, and it kind of spins a little bit off of the conversations or the services you did about lenses and how we see things. And that was I think that was probably 2018. It was or real early 2019 maybe. But one of the things that it gave God a spot to really open up my heart about not really recognizing or understanding who I am myself, because the lenses we have are so powerful, and that's something I think we don't recognize about ourselves. And so when this year kind of kicked in, and all of a sudden we had time, lots of time, there's lots of time to do just about everything. But I ran into some YouTube videos by Thomas Keating, and he's a Trappist monk. He's part of the Catholic order. But one of the things that he did a whole series on was basically it's just a silent prayer, and it really kind of reshaped the way I look at prayer and interacting with God, because his point was, and this is what kind of ties into the lenses, our lenses and our kind of cultural programming and the way we were raised and all of those things, they are so powerful that we truly don't recognize who God is. And then on the flip side of that, God being infinite, if we go, well, I know God is good. Okay, well, we don't understand what infinite good looks like. And so Keating's point is, when you come to meet God in prayer, and there's that Bible verse about go into your inner room and shut the door. He goes, think of the culture at the time. They didn't have inner rooms. What they were talking about was go be alone, shut out the outside world, and then just be quiet. Don't come with your Christmas list. Just come and be, and just be. And he really he goes through a whole process of going, no, just let go of whatever thoughts. And he says, just 20 minutes a day of just sitting in a place with Papa and not praying. You're praying because you're aware, but you're not coming to ask for anything, or you're just sitting in his presence. And it really changed that relationship with Papa. I mean, it really because at first you're sitting there and you've got so many things going through your head that you and I don't remember where I saw it. There was some author somewhere who was talking about when your mind is so busy and there's so many thoughts going on, there is no place for the Holy Spirit to rest. And I was like, you put all those things together and you're like, wow, if I can just let it go, just clear it out. And Keating doesn't say that's the only thing you do. I mean, they were monks. They were doing all sorts of stuff, but but just giving Papa a little space, 20 minutes twice a day, where you're just there, and anytime you get a thought, you just let it go, and you're just trying to sit in an empty space of your mind and let Papa introduce himself as he is, and it really did change my perspective. And it really led to a lot of other things. And so where I'm at, and it's still not easy. I mean, it's a really difficult thing to do. But giving Papa that space, it's really changed my perspective on the scripture. It's really changed my perspective on Jesus and what one of the focuses of what he was doing that I never, and again, I'm probably just way behind the curve, but that I just never quite caught before, which was when he says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the light.
Mm.
It always, that's one of those things that, and at least for me, it was always kind of, oh, that's kind of a magical thing. It's pretty,
Yeah.
it's pretty powerful. But
Mm-hmm.
what struck me was he's going, in my mind, he's saying, I am showing you the way with my life. I am showing you the truth
Mm-hmm.
with my life, and I'm showing
Mm.
you the light with my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you touched on it with family when you were talking about, this is the God of the universe. This is Christ, the firstborn of
Mm.
creation. All creation
Mm.
came through him. And how does he enter the world? He
Mm.
enters the world as a baby to an
Yeah.
unfit mother, basically, of a
Yeah.
line that is not well respected. He
Mm-hmm.
in as much as zero, as much as an insignificant as he can,
Yeah.
and he
Oh
spends
wow.
the
Yeah.
rest of his life emptying himself of all status, moving
Yeah.
towards lepers, people that when you touch them, you were thrown out of the community, moving
Yeah.
towards prostitutes.
Yeah.
Everything he did emptied himself of status, of
Mm-hmm.
power. And
Mm.
I think he was saying, I am the blueprint of what love looks like. I am the
Mm. Good,
blueprint
Dave.
of
Yeah.
what the truth of love is and what the
Mm-hmm.
light of love is. And it's that self emptying all the
Mm.
way until he gets to the garden. I mean, it's just this massive arc of
Mm-hmm.
him letting go of of who he was as a
Mm.
human, as divine,
Mm.
just not actually claiming that status. I mean, he made himself
Yeah.
a zero to the point of being abused and spit
Mm-hmm.
on and whipped,
Mm-hmm.
and he just let him
Yeah.
keep going. And he was going,
Mm-hmm.
that is what love is. That is what power is. And for me,
Yeah.
that was something that it really resonates really deeply with me, because
Mm-hmm.
it that is not kind of the message you got from big church. That, I mean, sure, he was humble and he was meek, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but he it wasn't an it wasn't like behaviors that he learned. He was
Mm.
walking out the truth of love,
Yeah. That's
that
good,
was,
Dave. Yeah.
yeah, that was a big one for me. I mean,
That's
and it,
awesome. And do you
it
feel like that's like a revelation that was happening as you were taking those times just to sit in God's presence? Like that was something that was like going deeper into your heart in those times, kind of?
absolutely, and that's something, I'm learning more about how God speaks to me,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's different. We're all he's meeting each one of us uniquely, and bringing us along,
Mm-hmm.
um, and for me, what I realize is, in those times, it's not like a lightning bolt or a sudden phrase, but it's like if you put words behind fog, and they just slowly, the concepts just slowly come out of the fog
Mm-hmm.
until you're like, oh, and then you start,
Yeah.
he brings it out in all sorts of different spaces, then, whether it's during those kind of empty prayer times, and I think Keating calls it centering prayer, other people call it contemplation, and,
Mm-hmm.
it's a practice that, Keating, he just passed away in his 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He got, he and Thomas Merton were really big on
Mm-hmm.
it, but you can roll back to St. John of the Cross in the 1500s. You
Yeah.
can roll back to the early fathers and mothers in the 400s. They
Mm-hmm.
all understood that position of, we are so limited in our abilities to understand and to see good and to understand
Mm-hmm.
what God wants, that we should, and sometimes, just sit there quietly
Yeah.
and let him be God, and
Yeah.
it was because so much of what I would do was, you come and you've got your things, and they're important
Yeah.
things,
Yeah. Yeah.
God's like, I got those, just set those
Mm-hmm.
aside, let's just talk about you, and actually let's just sit here and hang,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. That's good.
it's a very and for me, it's been a very powerful tool to just kind of open up that experience with God and let him show me who he is without me going, well, God is X.
Yeah.
Every time we put a label on it, it's gonna be it's incomplete immediately because okay, he's infinitely X. So honestly, I probably don't understand what X means.
Yeah. No, that's very good, and I think it's interesting. I think we talk about, and myself included, like just in the church world, we talk a lot about, meditation and prayer and sitting in God's presence and all these things that are good. But I think the reality is a lot of us don't really have that as like a real true practice. It's like one of those things that we all know I should be doing. I should do that, and we don't. And so that's maybe one of the blessings of this year, and everything's slowing down so much for us, is that you're not the only one that I've talked with and that's even shared that's been something big for them this year, of like really just sitting with God and not coming with an agenda, but letting him speak to them. And so that's really, I think there's a good chance, just because the date is changing to 2021, I don't think everything's just going to be magically better. So I'm hoping that more people, that this will even be something for the rest of the community, as they're hearing different people that have experienced life in that, that would be something that they'd be willing to try. Because you're saying, at least I think I hear you saying, that like it's still a challenge to sit there and not start with all the mental gymnastics that we do sometimes, but just letting God speak to us.
There's that. One of the things that's been fascinating is, again, talking about the time is, listening to all those videos from Keating was a really interesting, it was a great point, because he made it very obvious that this isn't something that we're walking some path that nobody's ever done before. He's like, people have been going through this. God has been walking people through this process for 2,000 years plus, And he said there are recognizable signposts along the way that you just kind of, and he goes, and sometimes God scrambles them around and they come in different order. He goes, but they're typically very similar for each person as they move along, and so it becomes obvious that it's just part of the human condition that we come with an agenda, that we come with our lenses. And God, I think, in a lot of ways, he's going, like you said, put that down, set it down at the door just for 20 minutes, because we don't, the example would be Jesus feeds the 5,000, so he's on the side of that mountain, 5,000 men, who knows how many women and children. The day's been long. The disciples make a perfectly rational, good call. They say a good thing. Send them home. They're hungry. That seems like the loving, gracious, kind thing to do. And what does Jesus do? Goes, nope. They, and and we do the same things. And I think if we can get to a place where we set down what we think good is, and let Papa fill that in, because what does he do? He goes, no, don't send them away. You feed them. What? And he takes the bar so high. So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's awesome, Dave.
It's, and there's been a lot that's come out of that. I think one of the other pieces that, and kind of mentioned it, there's so many rabbit holes, but I mean, there's so much that I feel like, and I think we talked about it at one point, that a lot of it's about unlearning, and it kind of came together when at our Bible study last week, or maybe the week before, we were talking about something, and that kind of clarity that we are, Genesis 1, we are made in the image of God. And so what does that mean? What is the image of God? Well, God is love. So we are made in the image of love. So rather than, the church perspective that I was not really raised in, but grew into as a young adult, was that we were trying to learn how to be the image of God, rather than going, no, I am my
That's a
soul,
big
my
difference.
core is the image of God. And what I need to do is unlearn everything that keeps me from being that,
Yeah.
And the visual that I got was, if you drew an outline and said, well, that's the image of God, and then you put a post-it over it and you said, I'm smart, and you put another post-it over it and you said, I'm rich and I'm famous, and you kept adding post-its, pretty soon you can't see the outline anymore. And I think Papa's coming along and going, no, let's just take that one off. Rich doesn't matter. That doesn't get you to heaven. Smart, nope, that doesn't either,
Yeah.
And so it's about unlearning those things and just going, no, I just, and I think as we do that, it allows us to live out of the image that we are created in, not in our post-it notes. So
yeah, that's great. Great example. Yeah. And I think this has definitely been a year for lots of us to learn how, to start taking those post-it notes down. So yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome.
yes.
I think that'll be exciting for people to hear. And, we'll see when we can either be back together or do more of this kind of stuff this year.
Yeah, these are great. I mean, Zoom is one of those technologies, and I'm sure glad this didn't, if we had COVID 10 years ago, this would have been pretty crazy.
It's really true. It's really true. There's definitely some things that are making it easier. So.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Dave. Appreciate it,
sir.
Hi, Bridge family. This is JL. I have my hair changed, but I am wearing these funky ski goggles to talk to you guys about what I'm going to be doing in 2 days that I'm super excited about. So last year, as some of you know, if you came in, heard me preach my message on creation care, I sparked a huge passion for the environment and creation and how God really calls us Christians to care for that, just the same as we are called to care for our neighbors. And so I've just been studying that. I actually added the environmental studies major onto my psychology major, so I'm double majoring in those things now and trying to get involved in the community as much as I can and work towards fighting for a sustainable future for everyone. So that's what God did, I think, the biggest in my life last year in 2020. There was definitely a lot of things, but that's playing into what I'm about to go leave to do. I was accepted to go on a trip up into the Cascades for 3 weeks with about 20-ish other students, and our time there, we won't be using any technology at all. It will all be put aside. We will be cross-country skiing everywhere, which I'm very scared about because, as you know, I don't do those types of things. Andrew Allen has not installed those in my heart. And so I'm sure there'll be lots of wipeouts, but more importantly and excitingly, we are going to be studying the ecology of the winter environment up there and theology a lot. So I'm really excited to dive into scripture and dive into my relationship with Jesus in a new way, because there will be virtually no distractions. I won't have contact with anyone at all because there's no technology, nothing like that. So it'll just be me and my fellow students and professor that are like-minded, also trying to strengthen our relationship with Jesus and explore how God calls us to care for his creation and how beautiful that creation is. And yeah, it's really going to be something, but I am super excited to go. Very nervous because it's going to be a huge challenge for me to push myself in all the ways. Everything is so new to me, but I think that's where God really reaches us and changes our hearts, which I am very excited for, to see my relationship with Jesus just strengthen, and hopefully I can take some of the habits I learned there into my daily life and make them kind of a lifestyle thing. Oh, I can't wait to tell the church family about it when I come back. I will be gone from the 10th to the 29th. And yeah, I would appreciate any prayers during that time. Love you guys.
Hey everybody, one more video from me. last week I had the chance to share with you just about Coach John, who we support in Zambia, and what he's doing to work with Pastor Gabriel's ministry there, working with young people from a very impoverished area, letting them play soccer, giving them a chance to, through that, to see what doors might open up. He's an incredible man who really loves these young people that so many people forget or just aren't being cared for. And he carries this heavy burden really to care for them well. And so last year we started supporting him. We were have been sending $100 a month, and that actually takes care of all of his housing for each month, if you can imagine, just $100 doing that. And so it's been a huge blessing for him, and him and I have continued to speak with each other and build relationship over the years, or this year. And he sent a video last week that we just didn't work getting it in. And so I want to show that video again, where he's just thanking the community for their support, talking about it. I've had a chance to figure out ways to talk with him this year. And he talks all the time just about what a weight was lifted off of him when we started supporting him. And so it's one of those hard things where we don't get to see, what our support is going to, or most of you don't get to see that. And so I wanted to just give you a chance to see John, hear from him a little bit. And then also I wanted you to know, this is really exciting, but we're able to send a little extra money this month, and we're going to be able to send the coaches enough money to throw like a New Year's party for all the young people. And oftentimes these are young people that haven't eaten in a couple days, and they certainly don't often have celebrations or reasons to celebrate. And so we're sending enough money that they're going to be able to get food for everybody, throw a party, kind of a celebration for the new year. And they're just so excited about that. And so hopefully I'll get lots of pictures back from them that I can show all of you. But I just wanted you to know that quietly, as we've just gone through our year and everything else, that we are supporting and sending love to people all the way over in Zambia. And we still don't know all the doors that God may open with that connection. So here's Coach John just sharing his heart a little bit with all of you.
Hi, Pastor Andrew. Happy New Year. Say to the family and the church family. Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. Cheers.